Morning. I'm doing this video to show you how to do research in the school libraries database. You may or may not be familiar with this, but it's always good for a refresher if you are. The data library page has changed fairly recently. Okay, so I'm going to start out with let's just start with why I'm going to want to go to the database. So the topic that I'm working on is media bias. And so I'm going to do a quick Google search. I already did this for media bias. And as you can see, what comes up pretty immediately is a bunch of, junk. So we've got a source here called Twitchy, which I'm sure I'm not going to use. Destructoid, probably not going to use that either. Newsday, I'm not sure what Newsday is, but I'm not going to worry about that one right now. And I might, look down through here. I've got mediabiasfactcheck.com, .org, studentnewsdaily.com, and we've talked about these types of things, about what com means and org, and then I have to do a whole bunch of secondary research to figure out if the source is credible or not. Down here I have one for the Washington Post. Sure, that's a credible resource. You may not agree with them, but it is a reputable and credible resource. Vanity Fair is a magazine that may not be academic or scholarly, but it's probably somewhat reliable. But anyway, I'm going to want to go to the library databases because I know that everything in there has already been vetted for credibility. So what I will do is I'm going to go to the SLCC website, and I guess I'll go, I'm not exactly sure where it is on the website because it's difficult to find on our website. So I'm just going to click here on that little search. I'm going to go library, and then I will find the library. So I'll click on the library, and what's going to come up is their homepage. And on their homepage they have this bar here that's called the One Search. I guess it's just called One Search. Then they have different collections, and they have research databases, books, ebooks, journals, digital archives, online video, course reserve, and online reference. This One Search is where you're going to start, but let me show you what it searches. So they have these research databases, and if I click on that, they have dozens and dozens of databases. This One Search up here takes you through this EBSCO database, and that's like a compiler of a whole bunch of different databases. If I click on the E to show you the EBSCO, if I want to, now I'm in the EBSCO host framework, I'm going to look at all databases, and this is all the different databases it has. So Agricola, AHFS, Consumer Medication Information, has all these different databases within it. They've set up the One Search just to make it easier for you to use. Oops, went too far out, sorry. Okay, so at some point in your college career, you may end up going into these research databases for discipline-specific stuff. So for example, let's say you are pre-med, and you want to find out some stuff on anatomy. You might go into Anatomy TV, which has a bunch of different resources for you. You might go into an art database, art store, auto repair reference center. So there's a bunch of those, but really the place to start is here in the One Search. So since I'm doing media bias, I'm just going to type in media bias. Okay. And what's going to come up is 990,000 sources. So clearly that's too much, but I'm just starting out my research for right now. I'm just in that exploratory phase. So if I'm not really sure where I'm going to go with this, I might look at this research starter. This is a very useful thing that comes up, and it just gives me sort of an overview of the issue, and I can read through this to help me understand kind of the larger background. It's got some history here. It's got media bias today, and it's got a bunch of resources that it has used and that I could look at. But again, this is not something I'm going to cite. This is just something that I might use to give myself a sense of what's going on. Now within this list that comes out of everything, there is so much here. And I'm going to recommend for this assignment that you're working on that you start to limit your sources. So one already limitation is that this only brings up sources that are full text. So it says over here, full text. And so what that means is you're only going to get things that you can access the entire article or the entire document online. Okay? But I'm going to limit this a little bit more. So down here in source types, all right, I can limit the publication date. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. I can limit the publication date by sliding this up and down. But that's something you're going to be looking at anyway when you are examining these. So there's not that many publications on the topics that we're going to be doing from the 1700s. So right now down here on source types, all right, I've got academic journals, books, ebooks, news, and magazines. I'm not going to look at books at all for this assignment. I'm not even going to look at ebooks at all for this assignment because that's just too much. Maybe I'll look at academic journals, but I don't want to start with that because that's not what I'm expecting you to be most familiar with. So I'm going to select news, and then once that updates, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to select magazines. So that's only going to give me newspapers and magazines on this issue of media bias. So that's going to narrow it down just a little bit. So I start looking through here. Okay, I've got the end of news, strategic censorship in a hybrid authoritarian regime. This is in Malaysia, so I'm probably not going to use that one. This one is the U.S. media's problems are much bigger than fake news and filter bubbles. Okay, so I'm starting to get a little bit more narrow. Here, majority of U.S. voters think media favors Clinton. Okay, so I'm getting a fair bit. But what I need to do now is I need to figure out where are these coming from. So I look through here, and here's my author, James Bowman. New Criterion is the source. Now I'm not sure what New Criterion is, so I'm going to go back to Google, and I'm just going to type in New Criterion, because I'm not sure what it is. And I find the source right here, the New Criterion, but what I'm looking for is a description of it. So I'm actually going to use Wikipedia. This is where Wikipedia comes in very handy. I'm just going to click on the description of New Criterion, okay? And I'm just going to read through this pretty quickly to see if I can get a sense of what New Criterion is. So it's a New York-based literary magazine. It's artistic and cultural criticism, all right? It describes itself as a monthly review of the arts and intellectual life. All right, so to me that sounds okay. So perhaps I'm going to look at this one, and what I will do is I can just click right here. That's going to bring up information on it, the publishing information, and it's going to give me an abstract, if you can see this right here. What I can do is I can read this abstract. The article discusses mass media coverage of U.S. presidential candidate Donald Trump alleging media bias against Trump. Topics include the role of accusations of bigotry in the U.S. politics, the notion of virtue signaling in relation to press coverage of politics, and the transition of news sources into internet outlets. Okay, so that might be something worth looking at. But where is it? Where's my full text? Well, here it is. If I scroll down, here is all of the text. Okay, so I can read through this. All right. Also over here on the left, I can read it as a PDF full text. And so if I click on that, it will slowly bring it up as a PDF, which might be just a little bit easier for me to read. Okay. While I'm reading this, or if I decide I want this, or if I decide I want to look at this further, I can either put it in my folder by over here on the right, this little folder. I can click that, and it will show up here in my folder, and I can go back to that, and it'll pull up everything that I've dumped in there. The other thing that I can do, I'm going to close back out of this because it's more difficult to read. Oops, wrong thing. I want to go back to the HTML full text. Okay, so now I've got the whole screen here. A question about citations. No, wait, let me back up from citations. So you can put it in the folder, like I said. If you want to, you can also email it to yourself. So you click right here on email on the right, and just type in your email address. Okay, I'm going to say article on put in the subject line article on news media. Okay. And it's going to send me do I want it to send me the HTML full text? Do I want the PDF when available? What is it that I want? It's going to send me my citation and my abstract. And it's going to tell me the format that I want it in. So I'm going to click the citation format I want it in. I'm going to choose APA, okay, American Psychological Association. And I'm going to send it to myself. Okay, so it's been sent. I'll go check that in a minute to see if it's there. The other thing that you can do is you can get the citation formats. If you click over here on the right on cite, this shows you all the different ways that this is cited according to the different citation formats. So here's my APA format, all right. But then there's MLA, which are the two main ones that you might use. Chicago is another one that you can sometimes use. So if it's APA, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to open Word. And I'm going to paste it. Now look what happened there. It pasted weird, right? So I'm going to take that off and I'm going to do paste special. I'm going to do HTML. Am I going to do, let's see which one I'm going to do. Nope, I'm not going to do HTML text. I'm going to paste special and I'm going to do unformatted text. And it's going to come up like that. Okay, that's how I get rid of that format. So I paste special and I do unformatted text. But looking at this, it's taken out my formatting. So I need to go back here and look and see, aha, new criterion is italicized in that. So I need to go back and italicize new criterion. Okay, so there's my citation. So that's one great way. It's so easy to be able to do that. Now, so those are the basics of that. Now while we're at this, let me go check my email and see where that is. Okay, so I've gotten an email here from ephost@epnet.com. Let me click on that. Okay, so here it is. Here's my citation. All right, perfect. Here is the article, and here is the PDF if I'd prefer to read the PDF. Okay, so that's another very easy way to do it. Okay, so I want to go back to my result list, but I didn't get there. There, result list. I apologize that the fan is coming on my computer. It's a sad computer. Okay, so I've got all these sources, and so what I need to do now is I just need to start scanning through them for the ones that I might use. So I'm looking at this one. The U.S. media's problems are much bigger than fake news and filter bubbles. It's by the Harvard Business Review. I think that that's a fairly reputable source. I'm going to click on it, and I'm just going to read this abstract. The article discusses problems in the U.S. media, its coverage of 2016 presidential election, and economic factors influencing media's bias towards big events. Okay, sounds interesting. I'm going to email that to myself. I'm not even going to read through it right now because I'm just collecting information. I'm just going to put my email in there, and there you go. Okay, I'm just going to keep moving. I'm going to go back to my search list. Okay, this one, Partisan Journey, A History of Media Bias in the U.S. This is by Choice. There it is. There's my email that just showed up. Choice Current Reviews for Academic Libraries. That might be useful. Let me just check it out real quick. Let's see my abstract. Now, where's my abstract? I don't have an abstract on this one. So, this one is not proving to be very useful. It might be a really great article, but it's not easy to find. And since I'm just doing my initial review, I don't need to spend much time on that one. So I'm just going to forget about that one. Majority of U.S. voters think media favors Clinton. It's by the Gallup News Service. I know that that is a reputable organization. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to read my abstract here. It's a synopsis of their poll that they did. I probably will use that, so I'm going to email that one to me, but I'm not going to do it right now. Lines of dissent, New Statesman. I'm not sure what New Statesman is, so I'm going to go back up here to my Google. I'm going to type in New Statesman, find out what it is. Again, here's New Statesman's website, but I'm not interested in that one. I want to know kind of more description of what it is. So I'm going to go to New Statesman on Wikipedia. It's a British political and cultural magazine. It's focused with politics and literature. The magazine, which today is a print-digital hybrid, has, according to its present self-description, a liberal, skeptical political position. Okay, so that lets me know where it's coming from. I still can use it, but that just shows me what it is. Okay, so as I'm going through here, I might be kind of just getting to the point where there's too much. So now I need to start narrowing my search. So I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to, I know that bias is a really big word, and media is a really big word. So one thing that I'm looking at more specifically is the polarization of the news. So not just bias, but polarization. So I'm going to do news polarization. Okay. And it is going to bring up some of the same articles that I had before, but it will bring up different ones. Now I got to check my limiters. Now when I did that, that media bias had 900,000 responses, but this has only 150. So I know I'm getting a little bit more narrow already, but still, I don't want books. There's 54,000 books in here. I'm not going to look at those. I'm not quite ready to look at academic journals, so I'm just still going to look at the news. And I'm going to look at magazines. Okay, so now what I've got maybe a bit more. I've only got 37,000 articles to look through, which I'm not going to look through all of them, obviously. These are sorted, by the way, by relevance. So if I click here, okay, it's what I'm looking for is the most relevant articles to my keywords. So the ones that are in the 35,000 are going to be a little bit less relevant. Probably maybe just talk about news or polarization, but these are talking about both. So I'm just going to scroll through here, and I'm going to see, so this is from this hugely long title. I'm not sure what it is about. I know it's from The Atlantic, and I do know that The Atlantic is a fairly reliable source. So I'm going to click on that. I don't know why it has this long title. I think that that's a mistake. I'm looking for an abstract. I'm not finding an abstract though. So I might have to dig a little bit more. And so right here, maybe, no, I'm still not finding it. So what I found that this is a magazine article, and this is kind of its teaser. All right. So this tells me sort of what it's about, and that's not quite an abstract, because an abstract tells me the entire thing, but this tells me whether or not I want to read it. And this one I feel like, yeah, this is going to be kind of useful for me. I'm either going to add it to my folder, or I'm going to email it to myself. Okay. Or I might print it. I could just print it if I have my printer. And with each of these, okay, so I'm just going to go back through here. And so what I want to do is I want to get a fairly broad sense of my issue. So I'm going to pick from a variety of different sources. So this one's from the Yale Center for the Study of Globalization Language. This is from the Spokane News. This is from the Christian Science Monitor. And the one thing that I know all the way through here is that all of these sources have already been vetted for basic reliability. The only reason I went back to check them was to see kind of what perspective they had, not whether or not I could use them in my academic paper. Okay? So this is the beginning of looking for sources. This is what you'll be doing we're going to be doing this in class first, and then you'll continue it for your next assignment. But I want you to get in here and mess around, and because we're going to be using database articles and database research for this particular assignment. You can still use web-based sources, but you are required to use database sources for sure. And if you are using web-based sources, you're going to have to do a really good job with that crop analysis to make sure that you're using sources that are viable. So, for example, Twitchy is not going to make the cut. I'll just check here, media bias fact check. I have no idea what this is. I'm looking through, here's an about. Let's see if we can see about media bias fact check is an independent online media outlet. It's dedicated. Its funding comes from site advertising, individual donors in the pockets of our bias checkers. This doesn't look too, I mean, it might have good information, but for my academic paper, this is not going to work. It's founded by Dave Van Zant. He studied communications in college. So, yeah, I mean, great, and I think that's wonderful that he's doing this, but this is not something I would be able to use for my academic paper. Okay, so let me go back out here, and I will return to the library website, and let me just show you how it starts again. So you're going to use this one search bar just to get started and go through those things, and really it's super easy.